Welcome to the Hot Read Podcast. I am Braden Gall. That is James Foster. We are brought to you by ML Rose here on the 440 Sports Network, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, podcast app of choice. James, good morning, sir. How are you?
Doing great. Writing up tight ends right now. Finished safeties yesterday. Those are always the two positions that I put off because I just find them less interesting to write about, but knocking them out and ready for draft season, ready for the college football semi-final game tonight.
Two positions that the Titans certainly could be looking at in the mid rounds or later. So very important. Where can people read those scribings? The wisdom.
Twitter, No Flags Film. You can find it on my pinned tweet. You can see my draft guide and read all my scouting reports there.
There you go. All right. So we're going to dive into the top 12 prospects now that the draft order is set and all the football is over, for the Titans at least. I want to look at your top 12 big board as it stands today before we get into All-Star season, before we get into Senior Bowls and Shrine Bowls and Combines and everything else, before we do all of that. So I want to set the table, set the scene now that it is officially draft season with James Foster's top 12. We'll kind of work our way through, and then at the end we'll discuss sort of how maybe the Titans should organize the top of their board as they are now the fourth pick in the draft. ML Rose, 7 great locations, soon to be 8 in Murfreesboro, all across the mid-state area. Fantastic chicken wings, great drink specials, great beer selection, fantastic burgers. You can go take the kids. You got desserts. You got the kids menu. You got great brunch menu, and a great place to watch football over the weekend or on Friday night, perhaps. We are recording this Friday morning, and so therefore I wanted to rattle off a few football questions for you that are unrelated to the draft real fast.
All right.
Like, are we nervous? Are we nervous about the matchup with Oregon? How are we feeling?
Oh, definitely nervous. Yeah, I think I said going into it, I think Oregon, I thought it was Oregon or Ohio State were the two best teams aside from Indiana. And I thought Ohio State was better before the Big Ten championship for sure. But I think Oregon and Indiana are pretty evenly matched. Really the main kind of turning point in the first matchup was Dante Moore just had no response to pressure. Indiana uses a lot of like coverage rotations and simulated pressures, and he just wasn't processing it quickly enough, which is understandable given his lack of experience. But I'm really interested to see how he bounces back in this second matchup.
Yeah, top 2 quarterbacks in the draft in one game. Pretty awesome stuff. Rematch, undefeated number 1. Probably easily the best 2 teams left in the tournament, even before Thursday night's game. I think the winner of Friday night's game is going to win it all. However, Miami's defense is playing really salty, and Carson Beck seems to be good in key situations now, apparently. Not the rest of the game, but like in key situations has been pretty good. The issue is Ole Miss. I don't know, what was it, 5 sacks on Carson Beck on Thursday night. Just a freaking wonderful football game in the fourth quarter. Indiana pretty good at pressuring the quarterback, if they have to play Miami. Same thing with Oregon. And we'll get to Dante Moore and where he's ranked in your rankings. But he's had trouble with pressure the whole year, had trouble with pressure against Texas Tech. Texas Tech very good at that. So that's going to have to be something that he deals with. Certainly he was under pressure in the first meeting out in Eugene. I just don't know how you bet. I picked Oregon and Miami, but I don't know how you bet against Indiana right now. Like, they're a total steamroller. So we'll see.
Yeah, having like almost all of your starters be 23 or 24 years old, like it really helps.
How very BYU of them. So here's the other one. Should Ole Miss play in all playoff games from here on out?
Oh, regardless of how good they are?
Yeah. Just every game. Just put Ole Miss in it.
I don't know if I'm on board with the participation trophy just because Lane Kiffin screwed them over, although I was rooting for them to make it to the championship game this year, which I think everybody kind of was, because I don't know if there's a more universally disliked person right now than Lane Kiffin.
I just that's 2 of the best football games I've seen from an entertainment standpoint. Unbiased observer, right? Like, don't give a shit who wins. Just fantastic. The Georgia game was unbelievable, and the Miami game was just one of the best fourth quarters. My kids went to bed early. They went to bed on time, and they don't get to watch fourth quarters much on school nights. They'll be up Saturday night watching the Bears-Packers game until as late as they want to go. But they were like, what happened in the game? And I was like, guys, you're going to have to, we never watched TV before school, James, but we watched the entire fourth quarter before school today. And their mouths are just like hanging open after Chambliss hits the touchdown. It was just a fantastic football game. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. So, can the Houston Texans make it to the Super Bowl?
Ooh, I'm going to say yes. I mean, I think I was catching up on some Will Anderson Jr. tape because I was filling out my all-pro ballot, not like official, but for wide left. And yeah, I think that defense is nasty. So I am a believer in the Houston Texans. I don't know about Super Bowl, but they'd be in my top 2 or 3 in the AFC.
It feels very Giants 2007, 2011. It feels very New York Giantsy to me. That's how it feels. That's how it feels. I might be picking the Rams and the Texans to make it to the Super Bowl. Rams to win the whole thing, of course. Do you have a Super Bowl pick before the games start?
I'll go Rams Patriots.
Okay. 2000 was that 2000?
Rams over the Patriots. That's the first Super Bowl that I was like conscious enough to remember watching. And I remember I alternated who I was going for based on whoever was winning.
The first one I remember watching was Desert Storm, Giants, Bills, Scott Norwood, wide left. That was the first one. I think I was 10, and I remember being like, "Oh, that's a cool thing that just happened."
Yeah,
I fell in love with it. I hate that you're that young. Was that was Spygate, right? Tom Brady's coming out party, 2001, right?
Mm-hmm.
The greatest show on turf, Rams, Patriots. So some history there. Some history there as well. Certainly Titans fans would love to see Mike Vrabel in the Super Bowl. I'm sure that would be just wonderful and delicious irony for them. MVP vote. Is it Stafford? Is it Trevor Lawrence? Is it Justin Herbert? Is it Josh Allen? Is it a non-quarterback?
Well, if I'm going based on how the award is normally voted, like as a quarterback award, it would be Drake May. Okay. If I actually had a vote, I would take a stand against just giving quarterbacks all these awards, and I would be so
Jeffrey
annoying,
Simmons.
like voting for like a guard for MVP just to prove a point. But I would vote Myles Garrett, I would say.
I think that's totally fair. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Even the fact that there was very little value provided to his team. If you look at the win-loss record. No, I know what you.
They need to make just like a most outstanding player, and specifically like say this is agnostic of position. Ideally, if we ran this over 100 seasons, you get an even distribution across all positions except special teams. Sure. They don't deserve awards, but
they're not humans. It's hard to. I mean, like, so is Kelvin Banks, like, for example, would he be your rookie of the year because he's been the best rookie, or?
So I went Armand Mimbu, Teteroa McMillan, Kelvin Banks. That was my top 3 for offensive.
But 2 offensive linemen, which is nobody's going to vote for that. Like, in reality, that's your vote. Your ballot is correct, but the vast majority of voters aren't going to do that. I don't know. I think Stafford's up there for me. It's hard to argue Herbert's value to the Chargers isn't greater than anybody else's. I would argue the Chargers roster and the Patriots roster probably pretty similar. Patriots may be worse. I don't know. So maybe that does create some value for May. There's no question there. I cannot believe the Jags and Bills feels like an AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
The Jags turn into a wagon. I've got some Jags tweets that somebody could roast me for if they wanted.
Oh, really? Like just anti-Jags?
I think I remember like the tweets that like Adam Schefter and them do where it's just an agent sent them stuff to say. There was something with the Jags where it's like, they hired some assistant coach and it's like he joins a stacked roster. And I was like, is the stacked roster in the room with us? Because like objectively looking at it, it was not a stacked roster. But I mean, they're a great team this year.
Pretty clear Liam Cohen was really good with Will Levis at Kentucky. The only time Will Levis has been good. Pretty good for Tampa and Baker Mayfield because they got significantly worse and fired a bunch of folks. And now Jacksonville has won 8 straight or whatever it is. And Trevor Lawrence has 40 touchdowns. Like pretty clear Liam Cohen knows what he's doing on offense. Speaking
of Liam Cohen, I mean, has this year not just proven that if you're in one of these situations where you've got like a B- CEO head coach, and then you've got a really good young offensive coordinator, and you're sitting there and it's like, man, I kind of feel like we should roll with the OC, just promote him to head coach, keep that continuity with the offense, but it's always just like too risky of a move for a front office to realistically make. When I look at just how that style of coach has completely like fallen out of favor in the NFL, and we've seen so many examples of younger coordinators getting head coaching jobs and then outperforming the old head coach that they used to work under. So it doesn't really directly relate to the Titans, but like if we were back in the Mike Vrabel LaFleur situation, like now I would have chosen LaFleur with hindsight.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at those, more often than not, choosing the offensive coordinator is the correct decision.
Well, I think it depends because the Titans just tried that and it failed miserably. But I think you're right if you go with the right strategy. And if you look at the numbers, a lot of it has to do, and I think this is a perfect segue into Liam Cohen, for example. It depends on who you're working with. And if you look at the history of offensive minds getting their first shot as a head coach, the guys who worked with quote-unquote great players, almost none of them have succeeded. Almost all of them have failed. If you coached for Tom Brady and went to get a head coaching job, didn't work out. If you coached Joe Burrow, Peyton Manning, like Brian Callahan didn't work out. The only one that's actually worked out, I think, is Andy Reid. Because he was working with Favre, and he went on to become a really good head football coach. But most of the time, if you look across the board, it depends on who you work with. And what makes Liam Cohen interesting? Well, he worked with Will Levis at Kentucky with an average head football coach, or a solid head football coach in Stoops, but like, an average program. Took them to a really high level, right? 10 wins at Kentucky. Baker Mayfield, solid player, but not Peyton Manning, right? Not Tom Brady, and takes them to another level. His numbers 2 years ago were off the charts. And Lawrence, I think, is actually pretty good, but like still not Peyton Manning. So lots of talent. So I think it depends on what kind of guy you're looking at. If you look at all the guys that you're talking about, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, right? Those are the guys you're talking about, right? All of them worked with guys who were sort of like, they weren't the top tier of quarterbacks. And when you're great with average to B+ players, that's when you kind of have something, I think. And so I think it depends on who you're going after. Does that mean that Mike LaFleur is that guy this time? I'm a little hesitant because of the last name. Makes me nervous. Like, it makes me nervous that you're just hiring because of his last name and the McVay thing. Like, I don't. Is Clint Kubiak like making average quarterbacks really good is what I like in an offensive coordinator. Does that make sense?
I'm a big Clint Kubiak fan for sure. Yeah, I think you've got to look at not just like list the players that they've coached and like stack up how good they are, but actually take a nuanced look at how they performed before, after, and during. And kind of, you can't always do a clean like A/B analysis like that, but just like getting hired, like somebody could hire me right now to coach Josh Allen, and then I would have that on my resume,
Which is why I don't want Joe Brady. Like, I don't want Joe Brady.
Right.
It's not that I'm doing the A/B thing.
Well, I'm not saying you are. I'm saying that's the tough part about trying to evaluate these candidates is that you don't always get a clean A/B analysis, because like maybe they joined, they started coaching a quarterback in his second year, and that's when he took off, and you don't know if that's correlation or causation. So it's tricky to analyze.
No question. It's a guessing game, just like drafting players, which we're going to get to here in a second. But if you Nick Suss, Tennessean on a football show, we did this a couple of weeks ago, where I said, how do you find, like, how do we know? How do we, what is the common, is there anything in common with the guys who have worked and anything in common with the guys who have not worked, right? Because they all get the job with the same basic, like, checking of boxes, right? Like, they all get the job because they were pretty good coordinator. They've been coaching for a while. They know NFLs. They're all pretty good at scheme. They're all pretty good at adjustments. They all have the same general skill set. What makes the ones that have worked different? And the one common denominator with the ones who have failed and the one common denominator with the ones who have worked, it tends to be you didn't have the elite superstar guy. You didn't have Josh Allen. You didn't have Patrick Mahomes. You didn't have, Aaron Rodgers. You didn't have that tier of quarterback that just is different, that makes everybody around you better, including the coordinator. So just worth noting, I think Kubiak's the only one that really falls into that category. There's some other ones on there, but I think they're further down the list for the Tennessee Titans. So we shall see. I'm on the Harbaugh, Stefanski, Robert Saleh, Brian Flores as your top four. in some order. And if you can get one of those 4 guys, I think you've done a pretty good job. Go hire a rock star kind of up and coming coordinator. Let him get in the laboratory for a while, take all the other stuff off his plate, and let the CEO leadership culture guy go to work, which is what I think the Titans are looking for from a trait standpoint, is they want someone they don't have to hold their hand on. So we'll see. Are you okay with those 4 guys in some order?
Harbaugh would be a pretty tough pill to swallow for me.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
you're the first person I've heard say that.
It's tough to sell me on a culture guy that's had terrible culture for the last 5 years probably, and doesn't like directly give you any offensive or defensive benefit. A special teams coach that doesn't have great special teams. So I don't know. I'm like totally out on Harbaugh.
Wow. Okay. A lot of wins for that terrible culture you're talking about.
They have great players.
That's true. That's true.
It goes back to what I was saying. Like I'm not in favor of just like plucking the guy off of the team, off of the good roster. And they're not a great roster this year, but
I think he's got a pretty proven ability to do this. Although Todd Monken might disagree with the good players. All right, so let's get to these rankings here, and we're gonna walk through your top 12 players. We're gonna kind of go top down, a quick little synopsis of why you like them, why they're ranked there, and then when we get to the end, we'll kind of talk through how maybe the Titans should move their board around relative to, again, best available position of need, always a debate. We'll get to that. I tend to think that the best player in the position of need tend to almost kind of be the same thing. It's kind of like college football where everyone's like, oh, did you have the best resume or are you the most deserving? And I'm like, well, if you have the best resume, you're the most deserving. It's kind of the same thing. So, all right, let's start with number 12. This is a player I absolutely love. Who is the number 12 player on your board?
So this is going to be Oregon tight end Kenyon Sadiq. And just to let you know, when you texted me for my big board, I was actually in the middle of writing up his report, and I finished with a slightly higher grade. So he does slot in right ahead of Caleb Downs. But just pointing that out. 6'3", 255, kind of looks on the surface like a flex tight end, but he's got a dense lower half. He is incredibly powerful and tenacious as a run blocker. I'm fully confident that he can play Y in the NFL, holds up as an inline blocker as effectively as any top tight end in recent memory, ignoring like the Jackson Hawes blocking specialists. And then you get him out on the move. He just eliminates DBs and linebackers. He had kind of, it's sort of like a tale of two halves with Kenyon Sadiq's tape this year. Watch him before week 12, all the games leading up to week 12. And it's like, man, this dude, barely played last year, took absolutely no steps as a route runner. He might need to go back to school. He misses a couple games with an injury, comes back week 12 against Minnesota, I believe. The final 6 games, like it is elite route running. He's using rocker steps. He's setting up his breaks. He ran a like deep hook route, just like a 13-yard stop where, he sank his hips and snapped that off on a dime. There are receivers that can't decelerate that quickly. And then just an absolute seam stretcher. His tracking data, top speed is 99th percentile for college tight ends. He's caught 4 of his 4 seam targets this year. 3 of them went for touchdowns. You'll see him run like stop and goes, double moves. Just a really complete player.
Total freak show of an athlete. There's no question about that. Are you nervous about Indiana covering him? That's what I would ask.
So they're
pretty
one
good about
thing
this.
They are really good with like safeties and linebackers in coverage. I think that's the other thing is like they just play so much zone. So when Sadiq's running down the seam, it's going to be about like being in the right spot as opposed to matching him vertically.
Is it fair from a Titans perspective to put Sadiq in the same category as sort of Jeremiyah Love? Like he is absolutely probably the best player at his position, almost unequivocally. Mm-hmm. Is a starting contributor, probably at the top third of the NFL at his position for this offense for the next 5 to 8 years. But it feels like a luxury pick that you can only afford if you trade down and all your best options are off the board. Is that the same way to look at it? I feel like Jeremiyah Love and Kenyon Sadiq are both very, very nice assets for Cam Ward and a new coach, but that it feels like a luxury slot if only it's your last resort, right?
So I would definitely prefer Sadiq over Love. For me, like the Titans, I think if you traded down to the 7 to 14 range, like that's where Sadiq I think would be good value. And I mean, the specific picks, like it doesn't really matter too much, but Jeremiyah Love to me is more of like a 10 to 15 guy. But the way I see it is that they have plenty of open spots as far as like passing game options, in their offense. Right. I have been a proponent of them playing with more heavy personnel. I think that there's no reason Gunnar Helm and Kenyon Sadiq cannot coexist. I think that would be a great tight end duo. Helm would not preclude me from drafting Sadiq.
I just think there's a chance that if you trade down to 12, for example, and all the sort of traditional targets, wide receivers and edge players are gone, you've added a bunch of capital presumably by trading down. You could do a lot worse than getting a premier piece for your rookie quarterback at either running back or tight end. But I'm with you. I like Sadiq a ton. All right, number 11 on the list. Who you got?
Yeah, 11 is going to be edge rusher / defensive tackle. To some people, Rueben Bain Jr. out of Miami. So he is 6'0", 277 pounds with 30 3/4 inch arms. That is first percentile. I am probably going to end up a little bit higher on Bain than consensus. For me, I value arm length enormously for some positions and not as much for others. I think if I had to rank them in order off the top, it would be corner, offensive tackle, linebacker, are where I want arm length. And then I would say edge rushers when it comes to setting the edge, defending the run, stacking, shedding blocks, all that kind of stuff. I don't actually really care about it too much as a pass rusher because I think that timing, setting up your moves, sequencing moves, and stringing them together is can really just offset that. I don't think that having 2-inch longer arms gives you an incredible advantage as a pass rusher. For Bain, he has had injuries throughout his career. Last year, he was not at full strength. I think at times this year, he wasn't at full strength. When he is fully healthy, he's got an explosive get off, a lot of different ways to win as a pass rusher, uses a cross chop, double swipe, obviously can win with power. And the reason that I don't really care as much about Bain's arm length is because he's such an awesome run defender, and I feel pretty good about that projecting to the NFL. A lot of NFL teams are going to have him graded as an interior player. For me, I think he's too small to hold up between the tackles, and I don't really see him having a frame that can add more good weight. So if we're talking about like rushing him on the interior on third down, like that's not playing defensive tackle, but I would not draft Bain as a defensive tackle.
Could he lose like 8 to 12 pounds and to make himself even more explosive off the edge? Because I do think it's a concern. Like there's sort of I think you can get too trapped into putting him into a position because he's going to be a really good football player that makes your defensive line better, right? Like wherever you figure out how to use him and deploy him, he's going to make you a better team. By the way, Sadiq, number 18 in the consensus big board, so you're a little bit higher on him. Bain is number 4 right now, so you are definitely lower on him than the other folks. I've seen some experts with him like in the low teens, right? Like I've seen some people with him at like 15, and I've seen other people with him at 2 and 3. So I don't think the scouting department is.
I don't think 4 is really like current. I think in a couple weeks, once some more boards get put in there, he'll go down a little bit. If you want to share this is his Rueben Bain's tracking data. You can see average get off yards. All the get off stats are above 90th percentile, but then when it goes to like top speed, 11th percentile for edge rushers. And you see that show up with his inconsistencies finishing. He doesn't really have the pursuit speed to close in when the quarterback breaks the pocket.
Well, and I don't know what specifically Ole Miss did, but they focused on him in their game, and he was largely he didn't get noticed a lot in that game. But I think Mesidor, either of the two defensive ends, I just think Ole Miss did a pretty good job on him, and Chambliss is pretty creative there. So I don't know if you saw anything about what they were doing to him that would worry you. Otherwise, I just think they focused on him.
Yeah, I was about to dive into the tape after we recorded.
There you go. All right, so number 11. All right, so number 10. And what's interesting is you and I have talked about your big board and your rankings, and I think they've kind of settled into where like there's a lot less anomalies on your board than I expected. But I think that's because the best players rise to the top at the end of the draft process. Caleb Downs, number 10 on your list, Ohio State safety. What do you like about Downs? Obviously, could have been one of the best players in college football, period, this year. Hard to hear you.
So yeah, Caleb Downs listed at 6 foot 205, not imposing from a size measurable perspective. Doesn't really have standout athletic traits. I think he's pretty average across the board, but just plays like a veteran in both phases. The interesting thing with Caleb Downs is that he's used in an incredibly specialized role in Ohio State's defense, where he's essentially playing like linebacker. If you watch from like the end zone angle, he is going to be in the picture for the entire play, every play. He's never ranging out to the sideline. He's never, running vertically with someone in man coverage. He's either playing free safety and driving on an in breaker, which he's excellent at, or he's like playing some kind of hook zone and, hitch routes from tight ends, like that kind of underneath coverage stuff. So when it comes to just patrolling the middle of the field, like the 20 yards deep, just in between the hashes, Caleb Downs is awesome. I mean, he reads routes like he personally installed the offense. Just incredibly quick breaks on the ball. I worry a little bit that I wouldn't say worry. I don't think he can do everything in coverage. I wouldn't want him playing free safety. I have watched all 3 years of his tape to try to find an answer to this. There's no like examples of him starting midfield, ranging out to the sideline and like covering a whole shot. He's got
you're talking like high point safety role where he can just
just covering midfield to sideline. That's stuff that we see Dylan Thieneman do. That's stuff that we see. I just did my safety rankings. Genesis Smith. There's a lot of safeties in this class that can do that. But a way that I've missed on defensive backs in the past is by being too rigid and like punitive as to what they can't do, instead of just assuming that NFL teams are only going to draft them to do stuff that they're good at. So like I ended up raising my grade on Downs a little bit, just kind of it was a mental gymnastics thing as opposed to a tape evaluation. And I'm just thinking like, okay, I have these worries about maybe Downs can't do this, but I don't think a team's going to draft him and like ask him to do that and then have him fail. And so I think they're going to play him in the Buda Baker role, and that's what he's going to be. And then as a run defender, I mean, just a top-notch run defender. There's literally nothing bad I can say about that aspect of his game.
What type of safety should the Titans go after somebody? Is it the Thieneman coverage, rangy, over-the-top free safety kind of player, or is it the more versatile in the box? I'm okay in traffic, down low, playing against the run, playing against tight ends. Which is the one that the Titans need more of?
Well, the latter is what Kevin Winston is. So I would say go in the opposite direction. I think with Thieneman, he actually has a lot of proven versatility because he's essentially played in two different schemes. Like at Purdue, who led college football in man coverage rate when he was there, he had the the deepest average alignment depth, 16.8 yards. So it's just absurd how deep he was lining up every play. And that's just what he was doing. Pedal, break to the sideline, pedal, break to the sideline, pedal, break on a dig. This year, he's actually kind of playing in a similar role to Caleb Downs, because they run basically just a cover 2 scheme, and he's kind of the middle hole defender, and he just, patrols between the hashes. I like that he's got a resume where he's proven he can do all those different things. If you're wanting someone that's kind of in the opposite direction of Kevin Winston, Genesis Smith out of Arizona is going to go really early. He's an underclassman that just declared. Kamari Ramsey had a little bit of a down year, but still a really good player. I think should be a day 2 pick. So those would be the guys on day 2 that I would look at.
All right, there you go. Sadiq, Bain, and Downs. Downs, by the way, number 7 currently on the consensus big boards. Number 9 is a player that I absolutely love. I think I can make the case that he's going to be the best receiver in this draft class. I love the idea of the Titans trading down to 12, 13, 14, and him still being available on the board. I have him even higher maybe than you do, and you have him pretty high. So we're both very high on Makai Lemon, wide receiver out of USC, who I don't love doing the Amon-Ra St. Brown comparison because he's like from USC. I hate that. But it does feel like
that's mine.
That's exactly how I feel like what he is. Like, he's just a ball player, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Makai Lemon just has incredibly average physical traits. But then when you read his scouting report, it reads exactly like every top 5 receiver in the NFL. He's like a good, not great athlete, super precise route runner, great hand usage to, power through grabby coverage, incredible ball skills. I mean, it's superhuman the way that he just became like a F it Makai Lemon's down there somewhere guy this year. At one point, like late in the season, he was the only receiver to have caught all of his end zone targets. I think it was 4 or 5. But man, Makai Lemon is just such an easy projection to me in the slot. I think that there are hard limits with him beating press on the boundary. And I think anytime I want to raise Makai Lemon's grade, like the Notre Dame tape just pops back into my head where Leonard Moore just smothered him at the line of scrimmage. It was every snap, just trailed him, and Makai Lemon had no answers. And it's I hate it because I really like Makai Lemon, but I feel like just after watching that, I objectively had to lower my grade.
I think it's what keeps him from being a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
I think he ends up being like, somebody's going to, like, all these scouts are going to see the same things we do. And he's going to be on the board at like 12, and somebody's going to get a really good player. But I think it keeps him from being the number 1 receiver and a top 5, 6, 8 pick or whatever it is. So the physical traits for Jordyn Tyson and Carnell Tate are just a little bit better. But I like Lemon as a better player overall. That would be my safer pick, is how it feels. He is. I don't think he is actually listed in the consensus top 12 right now. So I think he's actually down at like 17 near the Kenyon Sadiq range. So I think there's some value there for sure. All right, number 8, David Bailey, edge rusher, Texas Tech. This is a guy that at the beginning of the season, we talked about him, and through the middle of the season ended up leading the nation in sacks with 14.5. Led an elite Texas Tech defensive front into the playoff. This guy's got incredible off-the-edge plays and off-the-edge ability, but you've been concerned about him being a true, a pass rusher only. You've got him a little bit higher than I think you and I talked during the regular season at number 8 here. Yeah.
Last 2 weeks for David Bailey are the 2 best games that I've seen from him as a run defender. The way that he was setting the edge against Isaiah World and Alex Harkey, who are not, world beaters, but no pun intended. But I mean, it was pretty eye-opening. And, the 2 things that I wanted to see from David Bailey transferring from Stanford to Texas Tech this year was, number 1, prove that you can at least be a 2.5 down player, meaning like maybe you don't actually play every snap on early downs, because like we've got a base end that, can set a firmer edge than you. But, if we want to put you in on first down just for the pass rushing juice, we can do that. And we're not worried that teams are just going to run directly at you. at Stanford, his final year, he was on, I don't have the exact percentages, but it was 22, give or take, percentage of defensive snaps against 12 personnel at Stanford. So when the offense is 12 personnel, he was only on the field 22% of the time. This year, it's 68% at Texas Tech. And that's been pretty stable all season. So the first step is just being on the field, existing on the field. And he was doing that, but wasn't really making much of an impact. And like, it wasn't, moving me a tremendous amount, but I think down the stretch, he has just really emerged as a pretty quality run defender. And then the other thing I wanted to see from him is win with power. He's an elite speed rusher, but rarely even really had to try to win with power at Stanford. He has started to work that in more, and that kind of culminated with a dominant performance against Oregon, where the long arm was going to work.
I've always liked him as an option for the Titans, but I've been a little bit more in the early teens for him. If they are on the clock at 4, and let's say Reese is gone, you like Bailey over everyone else at that position, or is that too rich for your blood?
So we've had this conversation before. The tough thing is that kind of everybody at 4 is like too rich for me, because assume the first 2 picks are quarterbacks. Okay. I don't want to spoil, but my number 3 player, I think, is a blue chip player as well. After that, it's like any of the picks, I don't feel like you're getting great value, but I don't think that means that you don't make the pick, that you force a trade down, because you have to, you have to draft from the board that you're given.
Yeah, I agree. I think people need to be open to a lot more options at 4 than they want to be. is what I think people need to be. Bailey right now, number 11 on the consensus big board. Carnell Tate, number 7 on your list, wide receiver, Ohio State. We've talked a lot about this player. Great contested player, great route runner, great down the field. I am always concerned with his juice in his explosiveness and sort of short space agility, yards after catch, whatever. I'm concerned about that. I like Lemon better. I would take Lemon over Tate. Convince me. I know you've been high on this player for a long time. Convince me on Carnell Tate ahead of Lemon if the Titans are on the board somewhere in the top 10.
Yeah, I just think Carnell Tate has more projectable physical traits for the NFL, and I don't really think he's, far behind the curve at all. I mean, I think he's ahead of the curve from a route running and technique perspective. Like, the jump that he took this year was probably one of the most significant of any of these, top 50-ish players. Just was not a fan at all of his 2024 tape. And I think the reason is because he knew he was the 3rd or 4th option in the offense. And so the route speed and the burst off the line of scrimmage just was not there, because he knew he wasn't getting the football. This year he's running routes like he is in the progression. So that's great to see. I mean, the footwork, the ability to get in and out of breaks, run, complex 7 stops and blaze outs and stuff. I did not think that he had that in him. He has, it seems like people are down on him, coming off of an unproductive game against Miami. I'm not saying that, that's what you're saying, but you watch that tape, there were 2 easy deep post touchdowns left on the field because Julian Sayin drops his eyes the moment the pocket, whenever the pocket heats up. So he's not seeing anything. So yeah, I think there was a lot of production that could have been there.
I feel, and this is honestly, it's not because of those games at all. It's just, I think he's a really good player. I think he's got a really high floor in the NFL. And he's got similar traits to some of the great receivers of our era that aren't necessarily explosive yak guys, right? Dynamic yak guys, but are just, you throw the ball anywhere within 5 feet of them and they're going to make plays on it. And I like those guys a lot. I feel like he's a great value pick if he falls to 10. That's how I feel about Carnell Tate. I don't love drafting him at 4 or 5 or 6 and being like, we're putting our entire thing on this guy. But if you trade down and he's still available, I think it's a great pick. I don't know why. I don't know why I feel that way. I think he's a really good player. I am not as ecstatic about him as I think you are. I don't know.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm ecstatic about him. I think that if he had continued the first 75% of his season, if he can continue to play like that down the stretch, I probably would say that I am, but leaves me a little bit more lukewarm in my evaluation, just kind of stumbling to the finish line.
He is up to 5 in the consensus board, and he was, he started the season outside of the first round, so like he's up there as a top 5 pick right now. Number 6, a guy that used to be 1.1 on your board at the beginning of the year, or maybe middle of the year, kind of came on quickly with everybody in this sport and in this area. Arvell Reese at number 6. He has dropped down to number 6. A lot of that is because Ohio State didn't use him the way NFL teams will probably use him. At least that's the assumption to some degree. Very frustrating, as we've talked about, but still a guy that is clearly very much in the wheelhouse for the Titans at number 4.
Yeah, Arvell Reese is such a tough player to come up with a firm evaluation on, because we're trying to project him to play a position that there's like barely any tape of him playing. If I would guess like the amount of true pass, like one-on-one pass rushing reps that he had, probably 24 maybe, as far as like actually had a chance to execute a move. So you're going to have everyone's going to have an incredibly bold opinion based on an incredibly tiny sample size that most of them like probably won't even watch. But even if you want to do the research, it's hard to really it's hard to really feel certain. I would be terrified to spend the 4th pick on him.
That's how I feel.
If I'm the Titans, I think that he's more of a luxury pick, ideally, to a better roster. And, it wouldn't surprise me that the more I think about it and go over it, that he continues to slide down a little bit.
I am more comfortable drafting Bailey or Bain right now at 4 than I am Reese. That's kind of how I feel about it. And I'm not saying that Reese isn't a better overall physical athlete. I think it's clear that he is the superior athlete with the traits that are better.
Bailey?
Well, I mean, Bailey's got great player. He's got great athletic ability too. I'm just saying, and Bain's the 3rd of 3 of that group. There's so much projecting happening, and I kind of know what Bailey is, and I kind of know what Bain is, and there are questions there, right? Run defense for Bailey, and arm length and true edge ability for Bain. Like, there's questions there, but I kind of know what they are, if that makes sense. I don't like drafting a player I don't know who he is, even if he is an elite like a great athlete, right? Tons of skills. I don't know. I think I would take Bailey over Reese right now.
I feel that.
Number 5 on your list, Jordyn Tyson, a player that I wish we watched play football more. A wide receiver from Arizona State. Could be a guy that is absolutely worth taking at number 4.
Yeah, it's just the injuries. If he was healthy, I would be banging the table for Jordyn Tyson at 4. But, he's had a really difficult time staying healthy. He is the most natural separator at the top of this receiver class. His footwork is so clean. He reminds me a lot of Justin Jefferson in the sense that they both have like high cut builds and really long legs, and that kind of maximizes their separation because of the stride length and just the offbeat tempo and like sequencing of his routes. The speed is average, and that's really his one major weakness. Has had some fumbles over the years, but I think he's an easy projection as a 1B.
Yeah, I agree. And not just injured this year, but injured 2 years in a row with different injuries.
Right.
So we'll see about that. Also, speaking of injuries, number 4 on your list, the top corner in this class, according to you. By the way, Tyson, number 6 on the board. There, Arvell Reese, number 3 on the mock consensus board. Jermod McCoy, cornerback out of UT. Had he been healthy, I think this is exactly where he would be graded and projected. I don't know if he's, like these guys like Derek Stingley, right, where you just sort of come into a draft class and you're like, that guy's the best at this position. I think that would have been the case had he been healthy. Yeah,
he's one of those guys that just checks pretty much every box that you look for. Size, probably like A- to A speed, really smooth transitions from press coverage. Like he gears up to top speed to run with vertical routes instantly. Really quick click and close from off man. He can close cushion in a hurry. A rare trait that I always look for with corners, but rarely find, is the ability to sink your hips and decelerate with comebacks. Jeremod McCoy is excellent at that. He is a reliable tackler, physical run defender. Needs to get a little bit better at turning and locating the ball, going from like face guarding a receiver downfield, getting his head turned around. Sometimes had some issues with that, but also showed that he can do it. Like Vanderbilt interception, I think he had one against like one of the lower level schools, but then the Arkansas game, the Ohio State game, you saw some issues with dropping shots over his head. But yeah, he's I've heard that he could go lower than this due to injuries, but purely based on the tape, like I have a hard time keeping him out of my top 5.
Number 15 on the consensus board. Do you think there's a gap now between him and guys like Mansour Delane at LSU and Avion Terrell? It seems like we kind of, those three have kind of jockeyed for the top spot at this position all season. It seems like you've got some separation now with none of the other guys listed in your top 12. Is that fair?
Yeah, I've got Delane at 21, and then Avion Terrell at 29, Colton Hood at 31, Devin Moore at 33. That's my
top 5.
Top 5 corners.
I think the reason he didn't play is for this reason right here. I think the reason he didn't play is to be healthy for this section of the calendar year. Like he wants to be healthy in January, February, March, and April going into the draft. And I don't knock him for that at all. I just think it was a serious injury, and he wanted to take his time and make sure he was fully ready. And why risk it on an 8-4 team when you've got millions of dollars to be made coming up in the next group here? So I don't have a problem with it.
You mentioned that one thing, and this is like kind of off topic, but going back to Arvell Reese, something I forgot to mention. A huge part of his grade, more so than I probably have ever done, is going to be the combine. Like, if he doesn't test well, if he tests like average, I'm kind of out on Arvell Reese, at least like where he's realistically going to get picked. Because I mean, there's got to be something objective that I can like hang my hat on that I know I'm getting. You can't ask me to use my imagination with the tape and then also do that with the athleticism.
Right.
Right. I'll say that with Reese. And I think that also applies to McCoy. Like he took the year off. He's got to run 4.43 at least.
No, look, I'm Bailey and Bain right now over Reese right now. They might all be graded right next to each other. Like they might all be like 8, 9, or 10 or whatever on my board, but like I might go Bailey or Reese ahead of Bailey or Bain ahead of Reese. Number 3 on the list, Sonny Styles. Look, how far down your board should he fall when Mark Fletcher ran through his face in the first quarter of that game? The first missed tackle of his entire season. I know he had a little blocker on him there, but like Mark Fletcher lined him up and said, "We're winning the football game right here in the first quarter."
Yeah, Mark Fletcher is awesome. I
love watching Mark Fletcher play football.
he isn't going to get drafted that high when he comes out, but the kind of running back that you got to have in your rotation. Yeah. So Sonny Styles, Ohio State linebacker, is my number 3 player. Best player in this class, disregarding positional value. I mean, the scouting report is so clean. I have 4 weaknesses written. Let me read you 3 of them. Let me just actually read you the weaknesses. Room to improve zone coverage awareness. Left a seam uncovered versus Minnesota. Got beat in man coverage on a deep over versus Illinois. Needs to improve pad level to play through contact as effectively in the NFL.
That last one matters.
Yeah, and then got trucked by Mark Fletcher. But just a prototypical frame, 6'4", verified 6'043", 237 pounds, really long arms. He has just gotten so much better with his eyes this year. He's reading and reacting instantly. He's a converted safety, and the weird thing is that coverage has always been the area that he needed the most work on. What's interesting is Miami, I thought, was his best performance in zone coverage, just like some really great zone drops where you can tell that he knows exactly what routes he needs to take, what landmarks he needs to get to. Elite block shedder, elite tackler, unless it's Mark Flesher. He gives you value as a pass rusher. I think that it's just like a bulletproof prospect to me with Sonny Styles, and number 3 player.
There you go. All right, that leaves us with 2 names that, of course, we all know who are at the top of the board.
Yep.
Fernando Mendoza, number 2, quarterback Indiana. Dante Moore, quarterback Oregon, number 1. Why did you go Moore over Mendoza? And I do think it's smart for the Titans to have them at 1 and 2 on their board. I think that's the way they need to do it.
So to simplify it, the 2 sticking points, I would say, like the biggest positive and the biggest point in Mendoza's favor is the size advantage. Dante Moore is pretty scrawny. Mendoza is built like how you want an NFL quarterback to be built. On Dante Moore's side, I think he's a much sharper processor than Mendoza. Asked to do a lot more mentally. He's asked to get to his backside reads a lot more frequently, shows the ability to do that. Mendoza is I think his processing ability is going to get kind of overrated in this draft cycle. Not that he's a bad processor, but I think the fact that he is like a really smart guy, and like when you watch him on the broadcast, everything looks really sharp. People are going to assume that he's like this great processor. But if you're just throwing RPO like speed outs and making the correct decision, to me that's not really what I mean by processing.
Is Daniel Jones a good comp? That's who he reminds me of. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't really see that.
Well, I feel like Joe. I'm just listening to how you're describing him. I feel like Jones. He goes to Duke. He's a smart kid, like thought of in a certain way. Tall player, big frame, pretty kind of underrated athletically. I think some of those things are similar. I just felt like we all looked at Daniel Jones and we're like, oh, he went to Duke. He's a smart kid. He's a great processor, right?
Well,
does that make sense?
Daniel Jones came from a very pro style offense with Cutcliffe, and so that was part of the selling point, was that like you can watch his tape and see concepts that they're running in the NFL. Mendoza, there's some of that. You really have to filter it down to the like high leverage moments, the third downs, game winning drives for them to actually run real concepts. And I just think there's mixed results. I think there are examples of him getting 1 to 2. There are examples of him stepping up in the pocket, but there aren't a lot of examples of him like stepping up in the pocket and continuing to get through his reads, working to like a backside dig or something. He has a really bad habit of bailing the pocket once he senses pressure, and then he will continue to try to work through his reads like as he's scrambling, and sometimes he'll find continue to find options. But I see Moore be able to step up, get from 2 to 3, hit the backside dig like with really good timing into that zone window. I don't see that from Mendoza. Both of them, I'm terrified about how they're going to perform under pressure in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm
glad the Titans aren't picking number 1 and taking a quarterback.
Yeah, it's why they're not in the Caleb Williams, Drake May tier for me.
Yeah.
But I think that I would project both of them as quarterbacks that would fall in that 8 to 14 range.
What you're talking of the 32 starters, right? When you say that, yeah. Dante Moore's not small. I know he's thin, but he's not small. What do you have him at? Like 6'2" and a half, something like that?
6'0", 210 pounds.
Yeah. I mean, he could put on about 10, 15 pounds if he takes care of his body, and he's not a small player. He's just not Fernando Mendoza.
Well,
he's not Trinidad Chambliss.
It's not like I worry about him seeing over the line. There's no ability to break out of sacks.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
to shed pass rushers and keep the play alive, like Roethlisberger style or whatever.
Right, and I think what's more concerning though about Moore is that up to this point, it's really been mixed results processing under pressure. Like from a clean pocket, it's excellent. Under pressure, there's some wow moments, and there's some times where his brain kind of shuts down because he's a young, inexperienced player.
He has a lot more pedigree than Mendoza, though. 5-star player coming out of high school. Everyone thought this guy was going to be great. Has turned out to be good. I like that he was patient at Oregon and he sat behind Gabriel for a year. I think there's some like professionalism. He's just a very quiet player, meaning there's not a lot of extra movements, not a lot of wasted, body parts aren't flailing all about. Sometimes when you watch quarterbacks who run around and flail, like it's just he's not like that at all. He's a very compact, tightly moving player, which I appreciate. So I feel like if he can put on some weight and some muscle and some strength, I think there's a lot of opportunity. I like Moore slightly better than Mendoza. I think the Titans should rank them at 1 and 2. The question is, how should the Titans rank the rest of this top of this board? Like, should they have McCoy and Bailey and Bain and Reese and Tyson? Should they focus on those guys, or do you have to put Styles as an option for the Titans as best available at number 4? Like, how should they be putting their board together based on your rankings?
So I would probably pass on Styles as much as I love him. For a team that just has so few young building blocks, and you look at the history of first-round linebackers, and it's like, 1 out of 19 that's signed a second contract. I feel like you just got to play the numbers there.
Yeah, I agree.
And, if you miss out on a Pro Bowl linebacker, like, are they going to be looking back on it with a ton of regret in 5 years? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I kind of doubt it.
So is it McCoy 3, Tyson 4?
Yeah, I think you got to go McCoy, assuming the medicals check out. Tyson, assuming the medicals check out.
Super.
And then you're looking at Reese, Arvell Reese, Carnell Tate, David Bailey. I'm with you that I would probably lean Bailey over Reese for the Titans, because the idea of like, oh, this guy's like a positionless weapon, you can do anything with him, that it's not really that appealing for the Titans to me. That's appealing if you've got like the 10th ranked defense and we need that extra chess piece to Arvell Reese is going to be our X factor. The
Packers going to get Parsons, right? Like,
yeah,
pretty good defense. They needed that one extra thing that just is super dynamic. Look, you know what helps T'Vondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons is the threat of a speed rusher coming off the edge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you also have to think about how they go together, right? Like, Rueben Bain is a great football player. I want him on my team, but he doesn't pair as well with Simmons and Sweat. There's overlap there, right, with those two guys to some degree. And so even if you think Bain is slightly better, Bailey probably gives you the things that you need more, a skill set you don't have anywhere on this team right now. So I'm actually, I am, because of the medicals around McCoy and Tyson, I am tempted to lean Bailey right now at number 4. That's what I was thinking coming into the conversation. And you've convinced me even more of that, which I don't like. He doesn't feel like a number 4 overall player.
No.
At all. So the whole draft, basically this was the right time to trade your first round pick away for the Packers is what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
This is the right draft class to do that in. All right. I also love the idea of trading for just go to the Rams and ask for both their picks right now and just say you can have number 4. Like let's go.
Yeah.
Give us 14 and 26. Let's go. Okay. Or the who's the other one that's the Cowboys have 2, right? They've got like what 12 and whatever the Packers pick is going to be. So
Browns, right?
They're not involved. They don't seem as interested in maybe moving up as maybe the Rams do, but we'll see. The Rams just need a couple of 1 or 2 difference makers, right? Like that's where they could go find somebody. All right. Anything else you want? ML Rose, by the way, everybody. I know the show went a little long here, but hope everybody enjoys the weekend of playoff football as well. Where can everybody find your work all across the interwebs?
Yeah, Twitter, No Flags Film, YouTube, James Foster. I am currently waiting out a channel strike to expire. I've got like 20 days for posting Big Ten film. So, but after that, we'll be back.
All right, there you go. Also, support all the other great shows across the network. A football show covering the Titans. You got Nick Suss and Paul Kaharski. We've got SEC Football Live covering college football with Trey Wallace. We've got all kinds of other stuff as well. Music City Audible. All the other shows across the platform covering Nashville SC, the Nashville Predators, college football, sports media business, etc. So ML Rose, everybody. For James, I'm Braden. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you next time.